Yo, what's up, YouTube? This is, well, formerly known as Ricardo Colon. The channel name is now Rich in Truth. Rich in Truth is the name. It handles Rich in Truth 80 at Rich in Truth 803. That is my name now. So, this will be my first video under the new handle and under the new YouTube channel. However, even though I have a new name, it's still going to be the same thing. We are a channel for truth, primarily biblical truth. And that is what we're going to stick with, and hence the name, Rich in Truth. So, today, well, first of all, I just want to, um, I just want to basically say, I just hope that everyone that actually celebrated and kept the Feast of Pentecost. I hope that everyone had a great Pentecost. Everything went well. Everything went smooth, and you had a great Sabbath, Shabbat, and also a great rest day as well too for the Feast of Pentecost. Hope everyone did that. I ain't gonna lie, that Pentecost actually kind of snuck up on me because I was keeping count at first, but then with everything going on with me, getting everything ready for our new baby and ripping and running all over the place, making sure that my wife is taken care of, and making sure that you know our children are good, and just make sure that everything stays smooth sailing. Been ripping and running, so I actually kind of lost count. But I do thank Servant of Yah, Pastor Rufus, or Servant of Yah, PEB Rufus, for actually reminding me a couple days in advance. And I had to go back and check that count out. Like, hold up. Oh yeah, it is that time. I lost because, like I said, I stopped counting maybe like after the second or third week. Actually, I was keeping up with it for a little bit, but then things got busy. So, like I said, I hope everybody did have a great Feast of Pentecost or Feast of Weeks, Feast of First Fruits, whatever you want to say, for everyone that does keep it and recognizes it as one of Yah's holy days that He has appointed. Now, today I'm going to do a video that's a wee bit different, and I'm actually going to tell you my thoughts on a new movie that has just recently came out on Netflix, and a lot of other people are also talking about it as well too. And I just want to give my 2 cents on it as well too. It is Tyler Perry's Straw. Tyler Perry's Straw. And so, if you haven't saw the movie, no worries. This video is not going to contain like any real big spoilers or anything. I'm basically just going to tell you my thoughts on it overall, and even you can kind of get the gist of what type of movie this is going to be. Just from looking at the preview. You know how Netflix have a preview when you go to the movie. You have like a little like short preview of what like one of the early scenes in the movie. Yeah, you can kind of get the gist of what's going on with that. And of course, they have the description as well too. But yeah, no worries. Like I said, this is not going to contain any major spoilers if you have not seen the movie. Sinners, that's another movie that I do need to see though. I do want to see that and check that out. I've heard a lot of things about that. I heard good things and bad things. But I'm the type that really likes to go in and look at, see stuff for myself and give my own overview or review of what I saw and my thoughts. Okay. So Sinner is still a movie that I still have not saw. But anyway, so Tyler Perry Straw. So a lot of people have, they have basically like praised this movie, right? They have definitely praised it. They saying that it's a really great movie, and it really shines a light on the trauma of everything, and with black people and all that. It's a very great movie. It's very twisty as well too, and sometimes the movie goes in a direction that while you watch the movie, it goes into a direction that you're not quite expecting. And so, also I believe that Taraji P Henson as well too. I believe that she did a great job. She's usually a very phenomenal actor in her movies or actress, and I think Tiana Taylor did pretty well too. She played a role that was very different from what I'm used to her playing in these movies, but she did a very good job. And you know, I believe that some other characters they probably could have did a little bit more with some of the other characters, or at least develop them, or bring them out more, so that some things will just make more sense. But like I said, a lot of people have praised this movie. And then again, a lot of people have also said this movie is so as well too. A lot of people are actually disappointed in the movie as well because of how it shows, you know, the melanated people on there. And when seeing the movie, I definitely get that. I definitely understand where they're coming from because we as melanated people, we a lot of us, especially the ones who are more woke and aware of what the agenda of Hollywood is. A lot of us don't like to see our people been put in such a very bad light to the rest of the world. And so, like I said, I definitely get that. That's their opinion. But after seeing the movie for myself, and me and my wife, I say that the people that actually, praise the movie, I definitely see where they're coming from too. So, in my opinion, I feel like that overall, especially when it comes to a Tyler Perry movie, I believe that the movie was actually pretty good. And now, I say that the movie was actually pretty good because, even though some people are not going to agree with my perspective on it, I believe that that movie actually really shined the light on on like the reality of what a lot of black people actually go through, so-called black people go through. I really do, and I also believe not just black people, but I also believe that other people also go through a lot of the same thing. It's just that it's not really put out there as much as it is within the within the so-called black community. Like I said, we know that Hollywood does push a certain narrative in a lot of ways when it comes to the so-called black people. And I keep saying so-called for everybody that doesn't know. I keep saying so-called black people because me personally, I don't consider us as black. Me personally, I consider myself Hebrew, and I also consider, uh, I consider myself Hebrew in my family, and um, I would probably say I actually consider myself as melanated before I say black in a lot of cases. So that's just me. Like I said, if you say black, and like I said, there's no problem with that, no shade. But like I said, that's just my personal preference because I believe that black is merely just a color. It doesn't describe a nationality. And, for people that actually are more woke and aware of the actual history of the so called black person, I can't really sit here and say that we are all African American either. But anyway, I do believe that it did shine a light on the trauma that not just black people, so-called black people, but also, you know, it could be the, Gentiles. It could be the white people. It could be Chinese, Mexican, Hispanic. You know, European. I mean, whatever you want to say. There are people all over the world that actually goes through trauma like that. And one of the one of the lines that one of the characters say in the movie, they actually say that. Was that on the movie? I might be getting mixed up, y'all. I'm not really sure. But but anyway, what I'm trying to get, what I'm trying to say is that even though it's bad as what a lot of people are actually going through, like when you're going through your own personal situation, you know, you can like best believe that there's probably someone else in the world that's actually going through a worse and tougher time than you. And so when they were showing like, Taraji's P. Henson's character was going through a terrible time. The whole time she's a single mother. She's trying to take care of her daughter, and she just keeps getting a lot of obstacles getting thrown in front of her via people that are just absolutely and extremely unreasonable with her. And again, even and like those were also the melanated people as well too, that were very extremely mean to her as well too. In addition to a couple of the YT people that was in the movie, they was unfair with her, considering the circumstances. And I just know that anyone that could watch, how the story unfold, like I just can't believe that no one can actually like kind of like sympathize with what she was going through. For anybody that was actually going, actually watch the movie all the way through, it was definitely sympathized. But me personally, not only did I sympathize, I probably more so empathized with her situation because the truth of the matter is, I'm not going to say that me and my family have been through a rough time like the way that Taraji's life was. But early on in my marriage, when I was a younger man, you know, just getting married, trying to get my feet wet in this world, we definitely had our struggles starting out, and we also had some struggles that came about later on as well too, a little later. But I just think, yeah, that he was able to pull us out of those situations, and now we are in a much better situation to this very day. So with that being said, when I'm watching the movie, I'm looking at Taraji P Henson's character, what she's going through, and I'm just like really like I'm really like looking at the plot of the movie, and I'm really like kind of relating to her as well too. And my wife did the same thing. I mean, the only difference was, it wasn't like magnified or anything in the movie, but but like I said, we kept the faith. Even before I came into the truth, I still had some type of faith, and I already was very optimistic. An optimistic person in my younger life. Sorry about that, y'all. Had to pause my youngest girl. She was getting very loud trying to tell a story, tell something that she saw. They still loud. But anyway, back to the video. So when it came, so as I was saying, I can say that me and my wife, me and my family have gone through, have had similar situations happen to us as well too. And it's not just the way that her home was. It was also the fact that you know a lot of time it came down basically to her, to Taraji's character. Her name is Janaya on the movie Janaya. It came down to where she basically had to choose between her job and her daughter because she got a phone call about her daughter while she was at work. I believe that she was already late because she ran into some issues on the way to work, and she was already late and a little late, and then she ended up having to leave out again because she got a call about her daughter from her school. So on the movie, her daughter is actually sick. She's been ill for a long time. Okay, and so Taraji basically had to really you know come to the forefront to really take extra care of her daughter. With it just being her. She didn't really have no one else helping her. She didn't really have no family that she was close to. She didn't really have no friends that was helping her out with her children. I mean, she did. There was somebody that she worked with that she seemed to be very cool with. But other than that, like a lot of the other people that she came across in that movie were actually very, very mean, like extremely mean to her, right? And a lot of times, it seemed very unreasonable. So I do feel like that some of the meanness that came out was kind of like a far stretch. I do believe that, but with that being said, I've also came across a similar situation myself where I either had to choose my family or choose a job because I have a big family. So there's always a lot of things going on, and I've actually been the main, not just the main provider, but also the main one that's able to drive. This the entire time that we've been married, and so a lot of responsibility fell on me. And my wife, you know, my wife, she's been there for me. She's been very supportive, and she has been riding with me through all of this. And she's definitely came to the forefront as far as like wife's go, and I really appreciate her. I really do for all the good that she has done. With that being said, I've also had to come across similar situations that Taraji went through as well too. And now when it and once again, I thank Yah for bringing me out of those situations to where I'm in a much better situation this very day. When you're going through it like that, faith is, a lot of times faith is all that you have. It really is. And so I was able to, I was able to relate to, Taraji's character and what she was going through, and so on and so forth. So maybe that's the reason why I may see the movie from a different perspective than what some other people do. And a lot of other people, they just seen it as where it's just a way to degrade the black person, the black woman, the black man, black society in general. But me personally, I feel like that was just showing the reality of of how a lot of people are. And it's a sad truth, but a lot of times it is our own people who are melanated like us, whether it be family or whoever, that actually give us the worst time. You know, we can holler that it be the YT people and all that. We can holler all of that, but the thing is, like, a lot of us do harm to ourselves, and a lot of that comes from the situations that we're put in. You know, a lot of melanated people, they're trying to basically find their way, get to their bag, find their way over in this Western world. They try to keep up with the, with the YT people. And when, when the melanated people feel like that there may be somebody that's black that may be holding them back, or keeping them from getting something that's owed to them, or they feel like that they deserve something from certain other people, then like a whole like that beast comes out. Like I said, I've experienced that myself, and so that really is it really is a sad situation. And like I said, I do understand that people were offended by how like black people were portrayed in that movie, but there was also some YT people that were portrayed in a very negative light as well. You know, and they really was very instrumental in Taraji's, you know, story as it was unfolding in that movie and what she actually went through after the fact. Like it definitely all led to a breaking point. It led to a breaking point with her. All right, back. All right, y'all. Sorry, I'm back again. Man, somebody does not want me to finish this video for some reason. I feel like there's a lot. I feel like that I have done videos that were a lot deeper than this, had a much, you know, more biblical or truthful perspective on certain things, and you know, I was able to get through those just fine for the most part, at least. But for some reason, I'm trying to talk about this movie and it's not happening. I don't know. But anyway, I'm trying. So, like I said, I'm trying to land the plane here, though. Um, So Taraji, of course, does have a breaking point, and the description itself in Netflix tells you that she gets to a breaking point. And I'm not gonna go into any details about what that was or what that looked like, but you know, it came down to where you know came down to where police were involved, and that's that's all I'm gonna say about that. And also, I also want to hit on like more specifically her boss. He's actually played by Glenn Turman. If anybody knows who Glenn Turman is, he's the older guy. A lot of y'all probably seen the show A Different World. Used to watch that back in the day, and so he's actually the I think he's a colonel. I think he's a colonel on that show, and he has a son that wears the glasses and all black power and everything. But yeah, Glenn Turman, and he was also married to Aretha Franklin for a little bit. Well, actually, I don't think they was married, but they was in a relationship. They were in something. They was either married or they was some type of relationship with one another. And he's been in like so many movies like over the years, like so many. If you want to go back a little further, you know, he was also in the '70s movie Coolie High. For everybody that may know about that, I know that some of y'all may know about that movie right there as well. But he's been in a lot of movies, been in a lot of shows, and he's usually a very, he's a very good actor as well too. Pretty well known, and so he actually plays her boss, and her boss is really the beginning of as the word you know as the title goes of the last straw, and that's all I'm going to go into about that. So the only thing I have to say about that movie is that, like I said, I did enjoy it. I enjoyed it more than others. And y'all, I'm not the type that runs to go see every Tyler Perry movie. or every Tyler Perry play or show that comes out. I'm not that type. You know, and I'm also very happy that Tyler Perry also stopped playing Medea as well too. Medea's a funny character. We can't take that away from him or from Medea, the character of Medea. But I always had an issue with that. With him being a woman instead of just being an older man. I was like, why did he have to play a woman for all those years? Like, why was the woman so much more popular than, like Daddy Joe or anybody else like that? So that was really my main problem with um, Tyler Perry. But like I said, it really is no problem. But like I said, I don't really rush to see like Tyler Perry films or anything today. You know, but like I said, I do believe that movie did do a good job on shining a light on certain things and really showing how trauma can have somebody reach that breaking point. And and depending on how the trauma goes, I mean, you can either actually come out on the other end that trauma stronger, or the trauma ends up breaking you. So, like I said, trauma is definitely a major thing, and it also centered on how trauma can lead to mental health issues as well too, right? And mental health has been a big issue. You know, it's been a lot more awareness around mental health for the last few years or so. Not really too long, but probably the last 3 4 years, I would say. And like I said, it really shone light on all of that. And again, I know a lot of people don't like the fact of how how melanated people were portrayed in that movie, right? And a lot of people say that Tyler Perry was their final straw. That Tyler Perry's straw was their final straw. And so, and like I said, I'm very well aware of the whole um, like agenda, right? I'm very aware of all that, but we have to understand that we too are people, and we actually do go through things as well like that, and we can't just continue to hide, you know, bad situations that we're in all because we're trying to put up a put up a front or like that we're good or that we're doing so well and we're so successful in everything. Like that's really not a healthy thing to do. Because I do know that when it comes to melanated people, it's not just what we do personally. It's basically comes down to you know how a whole race of people can be represented. So I get that. But personally, I believe that showed a very human side of people that in real life a lot of people may not even want to reach out for help about. And next thing you know, you have suicides, you have homicides, you have children, you know, you have mothers and fathers like actually unaliving their own children, all because no one decided to help them or help somebody that's in a very traumatic, in a very bad situation, or going through some type of very bad trauma that can ultimately lead to them doing very disgusting and horrific things. Um, Personally, my whole thing is I'm actually more tired of like hood and gangster movies and how they portray black people. That's actually what I'm more tired of because those gangster movies and and hood movies, they love to portray black people actually like literally promoting those type those types of lifestyle, those types of lifestyles, and running the streets, bunch of bunch of women, no commitment, violence, murder, gang, you know. And I'm actually more, you know, they really try to praise that thug life. You have children that see that stuff and they feel like they want to be like that too because they feel like that it's cool. They feel like it's, well, probably a lot of little kids, they don't say edgy, but they feel like that's a very cool and edgy, lifestyle. And it's very, and like I said, they like it's upheld with them. And then you have people who never came from a background like that. They grow up, become adults, and then they get out and they want to start perpetrating that they came from that type of lifestyle because they feel like that's going to give them a better story or get them more notoriety, more fame, more money, whatever. And this is all through the industry, not just movies, but also music as well. So the like I said, it's all in the industry with the perpetrating and just trying to fake it for views, whatever. I mean, like I said, everybody that has the story like, oh, I came up out the mud and I always got what I got. I hustled, I grinded, I was in the streets, I sold this, that, and the other. Man, everybody does not have the same story in real life. They really don't. And it's really sad that not only is that not only is it portrayed, heavily in a lot of movies or TV shows. Like I said, it just makes it real bad to where that type of lifestyle is glorified above many other lifestyles. Like someone, a young man will actually glorify, somebody coming up out the hood and being in the streets before they glorify a man or woman that actually went to Harvard or Yale, became doctors, lawyers. Um, you know, uh, you know, basically like um, jobs or careers that have honor behind it. That actually to where like somebody actually honored the first president of the United States. Things of that nature. And like I said, that street lifestyle is glorified above everything else, and it's really a sad thing. So I'm actually more upset with that, you know, with that type of portrayal of us instead of, what was portrayed in Tyler Perry's Straw. But like I said, in Straw, that was definitely more of a human. Um, it was more like a human um, entity in it. What's the word I'm looking for? It basically just had like humanity in it. There was a lot of humanity that was portrayed in that movie, and that's just the way that I see it. And I'm pretty sure that some other people out there will also agree with me as well too. If you have saw the movie, but I know a lot of people are not going to agree with that. And like I said, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But like I said, I just wanted to get on here and basically just give my 2 cents on the movie without trying to spoil the movie for anybody that hasn't seen it. Because at this time, it's still a fairly new movie, and everybody probably hasn't a chance to see it. People do have lives. But yeah, I'm about to go ahead and close out this video. And so I'd like to thank everybody that stay subscribed to me, or even recent subscribers as well too. I'd like to thank y'all for joining the channel, joining me, and also like this like this video. Go ahead and share it and leave comments. What are your thoughts on the movie if you've seen it, right? And just let me know. Maybe we can have a little dialogue going on. But like I said, I would definitely like to see what some of y'all saw in the movie, or what some of y'all liked in the movie or hated it. Just getting y'all thoughts and opinions on it. All of it's welcome. It's just that, once again, I have to stress, just make sure that you are respectful when you are commenting. But other than that, I'm out. Peace. And I'll see y'all for the next video.